All right, hello, I'm
All right,
Dylan.
hello. Welcome to the Totally Tangential Podcast. I'm Dylan,
And I'm Jonathan.
and this is the Totally Tangential Podcast.
Yeah, we really got to figure that out there. But honestly, at this point, I feel like it's a running gag. Just the longer it goes on.
Yeah, exactly. Episode 100 comes in, and we still don't know how exactly to start it out. But
Well, that's what we're doing for the 100th. We're going to figure out
Oh,
how
okay.
to start every podcast.
Honestly, that's not a bad idea, but that's also kind of hilarious that you wait until 100 episodes in, and if we're doing one per week, that's 2 years in.
Yeah, hopefully people read the bio as to what this is about. Otherwise, they would not be able to figure out what this is about based off our non-existent slogan, tagline, whatever.
Also, we don't know what it's about because each episode, sometimes we have the Jonathan love dating show thing, and sometimes we talk about, I don't know, just random shit for an hour and a
Yeah,
half.
it's really just whatever we want. I'll try to think of something fun and creative again for next time, but it's not my week, so that's not my responsibility.
True.
But
So,
we kind of arbitrarily choose weeks because I went twice in a row.
true, and sometimes, I think the first week was just like half and half anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so, whatever. Just get on with it.
Yeah, so, well, before we get on with it, exactly, any weekly updates, just slice of life shit?
I actually do have a few of various, relevance, I guess.
Okay.
I guess for starters, my coworker, the new guy who went on vacation, finally came back, right?
Oh, yeah, you said he was gonna get fired or something, right?
Yeah, he was going to, but then my trainer, our lead, got COVID, so he is, gone. So the new guy's kind of filling in his position, right?
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, this guy came back, the new coworker, came back from vacation, a completely new person. He was so, helpful this week. He was on top of things, doing things without being asked, and, I don't know, he was, I don't know. He was just a different person. I'm like, wow, yeah, I genuinely enjoy working with you this week. Hopefully we keep you if you keep up like this, because, I don't know, this is really nice.
Yeah, maybe a little birdie told him that he was about to get fired.
Maybe, but, I don't think he really cares, to be honest.
Fair enough.
I think it's just, I don't know. We had a little bit of a culture shift this week, because without the lead there, it was just kind of us, the newer people figuring it out on our own, very supportive teamwork, because we don't have the most experienced guy there, kind of just figuring it out and relating to one another. It's just kind of a culture shift that I kind of enjoyed, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that then.
Yeah, and I don't know, it was pretty nice. We went out during the week to go get this nice Nashville spicy chicken thing. We drank. It was good fun, and we might be going out for the 4th of July. I don't know, trying to figure out if I want to do it or if I want to stay home and be a good student, but yeah.
Yeah, so you aren't going to work on 4th of July then?
No, I get the day off, thankfully.
Gotcha. We get it as an optional day, so I may or may not do it. I also find it weird because this is a Massachusetts thing, I think, but apparently they've been reducing the pay for certain holidays. I don't know, because when I went on Juneteenth, I got paid, my 8 hours counted as 16 hours, so I essentially got paid double time. But if I go to work tomorrow, I get paid 1.1 times, which is just, it's not very impressive as far as pay goes. But also, supposedly, you can leave early, so it's okay, well, the pay bump isn't great, but then if you can leave at 2 rather than 6, and that might, bump it back up to a time and a half anyway. So, I don't know. I'm still debating whether I'm going to go or not tomorrow.
Yes, if you're getting paid double, I would absolutely go personally, but that sounds a little iffy. I don't know, just depends on how much you need the money and also just how bored you are, I guess.
Yeah, really, that is. But
for what it's worth, though, I'd rather celebrate Juneteenth than the 4th of July, given a lot of things.
Fair enough. But I actually, on the topic of work, that was one thing that I was going to bring up this past week, because I don't think I sent you a message on Discord. You can tell me if I did. But I bought some manga from work.
You did not send me anything about that.
Oh, okay. Then I bought, Demon Slayer, right?
Yeah, I do. They had a movie about it. Super good, apparently. Never watched a single episode.
Okay, but at least you know what it is. So, apparently sometimes manga, which I had never seen this before, but, I was into manga before it was cool in Western culture. So, it's gotten, there's more deals with it and that stuff. And they have box sets of manga. So if a manga is 20 long for the entire series, then sometimes they'll box it all together and it'll save a couple dollars and maybe come with a poster, or things like One Piece that has 100 issues of it and more, then they'll box the first 23 together, then the next 23, so you have the big arcs together and all that stuff. So Demon Slayer, there was one left that was the box set of all 23, and normally, at least for this manga, some manga are a bit more expensive, but this one, it's normally $9.99, so $10 per thing, and I want you to guess, with the 23 that I got, between that and the employee discount, how much was it total after tax?
You said it's normally $9.99 per book?
Normally $9.99 per book. Not the tax isn't applied yet, so yeah.
Let's see, so $10, 23 bucks would be $2.30. So I'm going to say it cost about $80.
Oh my fucking god, I wish. It cost $148 after.
I thought you guys were gonna get crazy discounts. Never mind.
No, we get
that's still a good discount.
Yeah, we get 60% discounts on anything clothing related, but anything else, which is just marked as miscellaneous, other than music, we get 30% discount on. Music, I think we get a 10% discount on. But so the box set rather than $230 is $200, so it's already you're getting $30 discount just for buying them all together. And then the 30% discount that I got, threw it down to $140, and then tax for some reason was only $8. I thought it would have been $15, but I don't know.
Yeah,
tax
right.
works different in Massachusetts, I guess.
I would imagine you guys would have lower tax rates than over here.
I don't know.
Yeah, here in England, we have crazy high tax rates.
England? Yeah, that's where you live.
Yeah.
Your accent really sounds like it.
Yeah, I'm totally British.
Oh my god.
Yeah, this is sinking ship. But yeah, no, that'll be good. How much of your manga collection did you bring with you to Massachusetts?
None. Most of it's in a storage shed at my dad's place, but it's just something I still like to collect it, and if I ever get my own place that's big enough, I'd love to have a display room, because I think at the storage shed that my dad has, I probably have 250 issues of manga or something. So with that being the case, you saw back in California how my room was when I did have all of those set up, so adding another 23 is another wall shelf of that, and it's really nice to have them lined up. So yeah.
No, I really appreciate the aesthetic of a kind of decorated themed room like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had it, but I don't know, every time I walk into someone else's bedroom, I'm wow, it tells you a little something bit about them. For me, it tells you you're a weeb.
Yeah. I did have the C2 body pillow.
Not anymore, but I could get you a different body pillow.
Yeah, knowing what we do for Christmas, I can't wait to get my Jonathan body pillow.
That was gonna be my idea last year.
Oh, it should have been. And mine was 50 pounds of vegetables that could not ship to your city.
I'm so glad that didn't go through. What you got me was actually amazing. I felt bad.
Yeah, and just as a quick note for the one person who might actually listen to this beyond my mom who doesn't know, Jonathan and I, rather than sending each other nice gifts every Christmas, we get each other joke and cringe gifts. So last Christmas, you got me Garfield cart, a Mozart plushie, and what else did you get? There was one more thing.
The Yai board game expansion.
Gotcha.
For your favorite YouTuber, Jukes Fooms.
And then I was gonna get you 50 pounds of vegetables, which would have been hilarious. But apparently you live in such a shitty city that they cannot send it there. So instead, I had to last minute, and I was like, you know what? The best bad gift is a good gift, so you feel bad about yourself. So I commissioned you artwork for something that you wanted.
Yeah, honestly, that was now I'm gonna have to figure out next year if I want to trick you similarly. I'll find a different way to trick you.
Yeah. You still got a few months there, but so any other life updates, or should we just go into the topic?
We'll go into the topic, and I don't know, Yeah, we'll get into the topic. If at the end we have time, I'll throw in some other stuff.
Okay, so what I was tempted to do was, I have told you before that I have many ideas that I'll occasionally jot down during work, so I was going to have you do a random number generator and then just see what topics we get. But there's one that is like, I mean, it's not super time important, we don't need to do it now, but it's on my mind now, and it's something that we've had long conversations about before, so this, I would even believe that we could spin this into the entire episode, which is... the Steam sale going on, but more generally, video games.
Ooh, alright, well, I'm already intrigued.
Yeah, so currently the Steam sale is going on, and now that you actually have a computer that works as opposed to your 2008 shitty whatever it was, I'm curious if you got anything from the Steam sale, or I know that you often, look at PlayStation stuff, game sales in general, and then we can dive into more topics about games that I have jotted to the side, and, I mean, as the podcast name implies, we'll probably go on tangents that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but video games, yeah.
Yeah, actually, before I answer that thing, I kind of wanted to address the whole, us going on a tangent, point of the podcast, blah, 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 and all that. We've had pretty structured things overall, and I've been waiting for it to truly go off the rails like our normal conversations tend to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're coming in with one topic, or one, central topic, and then, offshoot topics, this could absolutely be the one where that finally breaks free.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, also, it works as a name for the podcast, one, just because it doesn't have to be to a T of what happens, but also that, we haven't had very uniform things of, we have the dating show, we have the podcast where the first half of it is talking about having a podcast, and so on. So yeah, as a whole, yeah. But,
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, well, so to answer your question about the Steam sale, yes, I did buy a game, but I'm going to refund it because I misunderstood something about it.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
I bought The Binding of Isaac with all DLC because one of my friends told me that it was now multiplayer.
Oh,
which
okay.
is the truth, but it's
local,
local multiplayer,
gotcha.
Not online. So I submitted a thing to refund it on Steam because I had a whole 1 minute playtime.
Mm-hmm.
But I submitted that on Friday, and it still hasn't gone through 2 days later. So I don't know how long it normally takes, but as far as I understood with the Steam refund policy, I should be getting that any day now.
Yeah. Normally they refund it relatively quickly, from my experience. It doesn't tend to take more than a day or so.
I'll say, as far as if I get stuck with this game, out of all the games that get stuck with, it's not bad by any means.
Yeah.
But, no, I think the more interesting question to your answer is, because I didn't have a functional PC for so long, the Steam sale, I would fall for it sometimes, in my, younger teenage years, but as I started growing up, I realized, what's the point of buying games now if I won't be able to play for several years? I'd rather just wait several years until I can actually play them, and the games will have dropped in price just naturally, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Now that
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, but now that I actually have a working PC, that temptation is a lot harder to resist.
I'm sure. Well, that was actually one of the topics, which, I'll bring it up a bit after I say what games I got. But, yeah, I was going to bring up about, you've always sucked at playing games in a timely manner. I'll bring that up regardless. But just now that we both have work and you're doing college at the same time and stuff like that, it's just so much harder to play games. So that's something, just keep that in the back of your mind. But we can talk about that in a minute. But as for the games that I got, I got two games. One is... Shit, I don't even remember the name of it. I think it's called, Enter the Breach or something. Let me open up Steam real quick so I can make...
yeah, the much-anticipated sequel to Enter the Gungeon.
No. Into the Breach. And that one I haven't played yet, but it's normally not too expensive. It's $20 or something, but it was discount 30%, so I thought, if it's not too bad and I have money now, might as well go for it. But it seems like it's a fun game. I guess there's robots and bugs, and you try to kill them, but it's not 3D as in full person 3D. It's just like 2D 3D, if you know what I'm saying. But
5D?
yeah, 5D. There you go.
Wait, no, 2.5D.
It's on a grid. It's like Fire Emblem games, if you ever seen those. But then I guess it's somewhat of a puzzle of trying to figure out how things go, and there's upgrades and stuff. I haven't played it yet, so that one I don't know too much about. But then the one that I have been playing a little bit, I haven't played tons of it yet, but Bravely Default 2. Do you know Bravely Default?
Bravely Default. I want to say it seems familiar, but I feel like I say that about everything you say. So no, I don't know what it is. I'm going to look it up while you speak.
Honestly, that's fair. Pretty much the way that most of the people in the description of the game says is, hey, you know Final Fantasy games, like the OG ones, Final Fantasy 3 and 4 and stuff? Yeah, it's that. It's made by the same people, but for some reason they decided to slap a different title on it. So that's pretty much it.
Actually, looking at it, am aware of it. Yeah, I've seen this. Is it general consensus that's really good, or like what?
I'm not sure about number 1, because I think number 1 might have been a Switch exclusive or something. So I haven't played that one, because Switch never goes on sale with games, or very rarely.
Yeah.
But 2 was on, or is on PC, and it was 50% off. So I thought, $30, that's not bad. And I think it has, like, mostly positive on Steam for the reviews, and I guess the couple of issues with it is, like most Final Fantasy games, the story is a bit lacking, so some people don't like that. Beyond that, I guess there's some issues with the PC port of it, which I haven't run into yet, but I've only played for 90 minutes. And then some people say that like one of the job classes later on in the game is pretty OP, so that might be something. But as a whole, none of those are things that I've experienced or have an issue with in theory, so I'm liking it so far.
Yeah, I mean, 90 minutes is a pretty promising start to it, so if you like it so far, I don't know, that's good.
Yeah, but, 90 minutes kind of goes exactly into what I was saying earlier, which is thoughts, feelings, etc. on you've always sucked at trying to make time for games. But now that, like, being an adult, or a pseudo-adult for the both of us, of just, like, trying to fit in time for games with stuff, like, there's so many games that I want to buy, like, I think, what's the robot dinosaur game called? Something Horizon, Zero Dawn Horizon.
Horizon Zero Dawn, and then there's the Horizon Zero Dawn New Horizons, I think is the new one.
Yeah, well, either one of those. I'm not sure if the second one's on PC, but the first one is for sure. And it's like, okay, this game isn't at the top of my list, but it seems good. It's gotten good reviews. I'd want to play this game. And I see that it's on, a 50% discount or maybe even better. And I'm just not buying it because it's just like, man, even if it's a good deal, I just will never fucking play this game, or at least not to completion. And I don't know, do you have similar feelings when it comes to buying things, or just trying to play the games that you already own?
I absolutely do, but I think I'm going to actually go on a bit of a totally tangent here, but I feel like it's enough on topic that I think it's kind of a key element as to why this is happening. And I think we need to discuss the kind of games that we enjoy playing and why I think that's a fatal factor into why we feel the way that we feel. Because for me, just starting off, like, a game has to have, like, an expansive narrative in nearly every circumstance. Otherwise, I'm not going to play it. So, like, something like visual novels are obviously right up my alley. They're literally just books, more or less. But then, I don't know, Red Dead Redemption, massive game with a massive story, 100-hour playtimes are not unheard of. You got Nier Replicant, where you got to replay the game like 5 times to get to the true ending, but that has an expansive story, and so on and so forth. So I think part of the reason why I just don't play games that often is, yeah, it's hard to like set time aside for it, but also just going in, I know this is gonna be like a 40-hour investment minimum. It's not like I'm like playing Apex where I could like set aside 2 hours, not play for a couple weeks and be good and all that. Like, this is like a dedicated time investment that I'm going in with. So like, the thought of buying games on the sale, I haven't bought any games beyond the Binding of Isaac, which I'm going to refund, because like, I'm just not going to get around to it. Like, I work full time, I'm taking 2 accelerated classes, and I'm trying to maintain a social life. Like, there is zero time to play the games that I genuinely really want to play.
No, it's definitely, hard, and I don't know, something that I just can't imagine doing anymore. Because I remember when I was in elementary school, like when a new Pokemon came out, I remember that my favorite one and the one that was like the most influential for me was Diamond and Pearl. And I remember, I think I was like in fourth or fifth grade at the time, and I got both of them on, the Nintendo DS, and I could go home and I would play those every day, whether it be for 2 hours a time or whatever. But I could just sit down and do that, and I would love it so much. Where now half the games just feel like, I have to dedicate 7 hours a day for 4 days to like binge play it, and then never play it again, or I might as well never play this game, or I don't know. It's hard to play 1 hour of certain games like I could with Pokemon as a child. Even if the game like meets that format, it just doesn't feel as gratifying. And
Yeah.
I'm sure part of it is as you grow older, you're more picky about things because you've experienced more things as well. But I don't know, it just sucks because I feel like when I was a kid, games just felt so much more awesome and interesting when I played them. Like, I remember when I played Skyrim for the first time and stuff like that, where now I get a game and there's occasionally ones that I just love, like Near Replicant. I loved the visuals, I loved fishing for 20 hours and stuff like that. But generally, it's so hard for me to find a game that I can dedicate that time to and actually sit down and enjoy so much. And I'm not sure if it's a me thing, if it's a, just how times have changed thing, or what the case is.
Well, I happened to listen to a podcast episode from Dr. K earlier in the week.
Mm-hmm.
Or the week before, it doesn't really matter. But it was talking about like the idea that childhood is the best part of your life, and part of the reason for that is because of the novelty of experiences.
Yeah, I remember that I listened to the beginning of that, but then I was kind of annoyed lately because I thought it was going to be about why childhood is the best time in your life and how to change that feeling or whatever, where I think the original post was like, my childhood wasn't good whatsoever, and I was just like, fuck this is the opposite of what I thought the title meant.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you kind of got to sort through episodes for like what's applicable to you, because like learning for the sake of learning can be interesting, just learning more about how other people live their lives. But really, if it doesn't apply to you, it's like, oh, we're going to skip that episode. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, it applied to me.
Ooh.
But all that aside, one of the hypotheses, or not even hypotheses, seems relatively like concrete evidence behind it, is that part of the reason childhood and childhood activities seem so great is the novelty behind it. And I actually think that might explain a little bit as to why, you feel the way you do, but also maybe why we play the games we play. Because for you, you play a lot of like RPGs that are so expansive. And then I play the games I play, which are very story expansive as well, even if less so focused on the RPG aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking maybe part of the reason is gameplay wise, it's pretty rare to find a game these days that does commercially well, that doesn't stray far from the formula. A lot of games are just the same largely, even going down to the same button layouts.
Yeah, that's true.
So at least with these large expansive stories, even if the gameplay is largely the same, we're getting at least the novelty of the story that makes it feel unique. But even then, like, maybe the gameplay loop itself still feels like a large chore, like a dedicated time sink. So it's not even like it's completely immune,
Yeah, well, also there's the fact that, which not to say that there weren't shit tons of games when we were younger, but when we were younger, like, if you went on the computer, there weren't many PC exclusive games. Maybe like World of Warcraft, but beyond that, like, Flash games are the most PC exclusive you're going to get, where, since that's the case, and indie games weren't at least booming at the time, that, you basically, any game that you want, you can go down to Target and find, or GameStop, and it doesn't feel like there's a unlimited thing, where now you can go onto Steam, and it's just like, oh, great, there's approximately 800,000 games on here, and I will never play, 0.1% of this.
Well, yeah, and I think the thing that's kind of interesting is kind of thinking about the way that I'm going through my list of games. Like you have mentioned, I have done obscenely bad at catching up on my video game bucket list. Though I've done really well at my TV show and movie bucket list. But point being, with games, if you've actually been paying attention to the list of games that I've been playing over the past couple of years, interestingly, like, the only one that was actually on the list would have been Red Dead Redemption 2. And I'm not even the one who bought it. My parents got it for me for Christmas, thankfully. But, like, everything else has been like, this isn't on the list, but it's kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing. It looks fun, let's play it, and I love it. But when I get around to playing games on my list, I don't know. I'm actually kind of underwhelmed. Maybe it's because it appealed to me at a certain time of my life, and now that I'm finally getting around to it, it no longer appeals to me. Maybe I just enjoy the spontaneity. Like, as a kid, you get a game, you don't necessarily know if you're gonna like it, but it's a box of surprises. Let's find out, and then you like it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, maybe it's that, but honestly, even as far as games that I've been playing, again, it has been things I know about, but like not much. Like Nier Automata was something strictly on your recommendation. I knew nothing about it. I played Replicant after, like that was on the list. But like, I don't know, Ace Attorney, like the Phoenix Wright games, I know that they were one of the most influential visual novels of all time, and it's about a lawyer. That's all I knew going in, and I loved it. Like, it wasn't even on the list. It was just, it was on sale one day, so I was like, yeah, sure, let's get it. And I have a huge backlog of games I want to play that you've seen me buy that I don't think I'm ever going to get around to playing.
Yeah.
So just kind of interesting.
It really is, but that actually kind of spirals into another one of the things that I was curious about, which is certain games, it's kind of easy to tell how people got into it. If you were a kid and you got into Pokemon, I mean, like, it was huge. People on the playground would talk about it. You watch Nickelodeon, there were advertisements for the news thing. But you're one of the only people that I know that are really into visual novels. Like, they're not the only game that you play, but you definitely play them more than anybody that I personally know. And
Yeah.
I'm just curious of, like, what was the first thing that got you into it? Did you just, like, accidentally play something that was a visual novel and was like, oh, I really like this style of game? Or did you seek it out of, like, oh, that sounds like something that I'd be into, and then it clicked for you?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I can't think of the exact trigger, but I could think of at least a few of the contributing factors that certainly pushed me that way. Is I had a lot of friends who were into anime, but I didn't have any like anime services, and then also just on TV they would never air in order. There were so many episodes, like it was just so overwhelming. So I didn't want to like watch anime ultimately. Also, anime can be a little weird sometimes. Not that
But visual novels can't. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know it going in though. That's the key thing here.
Gotcha.
But like I saw the aesthetic was relatively similar, right? Like I saw, okay, like clearly there is an inspiration here, and I know that many animes were based off of visual novels, much like they are manga.
Yeah.
But also importantly is, at a certain point in my life, I never stopped enjoying reading, but I stopped being able to read like actual lengthy novels with complex verbiage, like. I just like the idea of reading, but if you stick a 400-page paper novel in front of me, like about some fantastic story, I will not get past 10 pages. I don't know if it's just the level of complexity in it. I don't know if it's the heavy exposition. I don't know what it is, but I've tried many times over the years. I just cannot have the focus to actually read. I don't know if like social media and instant gratification ruined my attention cycle, but like I can actually read visual novels because I'm getting stimulated on multiple levels. I'm reading and imagining, but I can see it as well. I can hear it as well, and like it's a lot of active involvement with clicking. Whereas with reading a page in a book, I'll probably like trip over sentences, have to reread it 3 times if it's particularly complicated and all that, right? Or has a word I don't understand. So it was just a lot more digestible. So it satisfied my desire for anime, satisfied my idea for reading. It satisfied the craving for like a story where your choices actually made a difference, because Telltale and like Life is Strange and other games were really popular right when I was getting into visual novels initially. And I played those games and realized your decisions did not matter in the slightest until the very end of the game, where regardless of whatever you did, it's one decision or the other, right?
True.
And it doesn't matter how good or bad you were. But in these games, it kind of locked you into a route that actually did significantly like change the story in one way or another. So like it satisfied a gaming itch as well. So it really was just a perfect culmination of like, these are a lot of factors that pushed me into it. And it satisfied a very specific itch that I couldn't get scratched anywhere else.
Okay, do you remember what your first visual novel was?
I actually do. And actually, yeah, that does remind me about how I got into it. It got recommended to me on Steam, even though I had never played an anime game on Steam before. Maybe it's just because it was newly released or something. I don't know, but it was called Everlasting Summer. You could Google it, and you'll see an image, and you'll instantly be able to tell what kind of visual novel it is. It's not inappropriate, but like you'll be able to tell it the kind of.
Was it a dating sim?
You could call it that and not be entirely wrong.
Yeah, because that's what it looks like.
Yeah, so like it actually it posed itself as a dating sim with certain supernatural elements, not ghosts, but like just stuff that is not standard, right? But like actually as you went through and solved it, there was actually a bit of I don't want to use the word complexity because I've been using it a lot. But like it was a lot more dense and content filled than simply a dating sim. Like there was a lot more to it, but yeah, at the heart of it, it was just a harem game. So, but it got me at least introduced to it. And then my next game I played would have been Katawa Shoujo, which again was in the same idea of a harem dating thing. And like it was fun. I only played one of the routes because I was like, okay, I got enough of the game. I'm not going to go through the rest of the routes. But it kind of showed me like, okay, there is a thing here that exists that I generally like, but I see potential for it to be so much more. And so I branched out, like, what other visual novels are there? And I quickly saw, there's a lot of deeply emotional, impactful ones, like Clannad. There's going to be fun, investigative ones that I've never played any other game, like Ace Attorney. There's going to be horror-based ones, like Doki Doki or Higurashi or whatever. Like, there's just so many other ones, so I've never intentionally gone back to a dating sim. Like, I'd say Steins Gate was actually kind of close, but like I've never intentionally gone back to one. Like that's how I dipped my toe in, but I never really looked back because it gave me just a great enough experience elsewhere.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. I do find it interesting, though, that not to say that visual novels are your favorite game genre, but they're definitely up there for you. And I can appreciate, like, very new, cutting-edge graphics, blah, 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 just like anyone else can. But that game style of visual novels, and one of my favorite game styles, which is just JRPGs, like turn-based JRPGs, are things that have been around for, 30, 40 years plus and all that stuff. And honestly, they kind of have had it down pat, and I find it too bad that at least with JRPGs that, like, I feel like half of the good ones these days are just indie games that no one had thought of. Like, I understand that that people's interests change, but it seems like everything's got to be, this big 3D graphic, whatever the new bad, big, breaking title is, where it's just like playing Octopath Traveler that I played a bit ago, even though there were some issues with it, or playing this game that I'm playing now that I told you about. For me, they're just, like, so easy to get into, and honestly, like, they quench my thirst for those type of games just so nicely.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting because, like, at least based off of what I remember historically, like, I think the key time for RPGs would have been, like, 90s and, the first decade of the 2000s. Because that was a key point in history where, like, technology and gaming was far enough to, like, make those games as expansive as those systems can get. Meanwhile, other game genres were, like, lagging behind. Like, they were, like, bursting forward, but they weren't to their capabilities yet. Whereas now the capabilities of an RPG aren't necessarily super, like, farther than it was before, like, when it was in the early 2000s. I wouldn't say it's, like, night and day difference. Whereas if you look at Shooter, like, oh my god, you compare, like, 90s, like, GoldenEye to Apex, it's literally not even the same.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised if something as well is... I know that a lot of people aren't huge for, like, games that are on rails, where, you just kind of have to follow it. And JRPGs really are like, yeah, maybe you can go to a secret area to find Bahamut in Final Fantasy or something like that. But generally it's like... look, there's not much of a skill gap that can happen here. Like, if you're speedrunning these games, really what it comes down to is knowing what people are weak to and then hoping that you get lucky crits at point. But if you're trying to speedrun something, I'm sure that there's skill that involved in it. I'm not saying that I can just pick up this game and, like, get a world record right off the bat. But compared to games that are super, open world and intensive and stuff like that, like, look at Sekiro speedruns versus, a Pokemon speedrun. A Pokemon speedrun is just like, okay, you have to know what moves to do when. You have to maximize your steps being perfect and all of that stuff. You can manipulate RNG to some extent, but at the end of the day, like, the skill is more in the knowledge. Where if you're trying to speedrun Sekiro, yeah, there's knowledge, but it's more in like the muscle memory and reflexes where the skill comes out. And I think that a lot of people kind of prefer that, where they're not as on rails and it's more like player expressive than just knowing the right thing to do at the right time.
That's fair, but I'm actually gonna launch into a rant here.
Okay.
Okay. People are kind of stupid when they say they hate games that are on rails. Because the same people who say that, I often see complaining about open world games feeling empty and not having enough content. And it's like, yeah, because you can't fill an open world like with that much density, that much, like, I don't know, just stuff to do, unless if it's a small open world. If you're having a massive open world, there's going to be empty periods where you're just walking, or whatever the form of transportation is, and it's not going to be exciting unless you like looking at views. Whereas games on rails, yeah, you don't get to like explore outside on your own merits as much and desires, but at least it's a tailored experience where everywhere you go, there's going to be content, and I like that. I like actually having a tailored game experience.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. I mean, I think they both have their merits because, I mean, both are clearly being made, and there's some that do things better than others. But for sure, it definitely seems like no matter what you make, I mean, somebody's going to find something to shit on, whether it be open world, whether it be on rails, or whatever.
Yeah, and it's not that I hate open worlds. It's just I hate the complaints against games on rails specifically. Like, I don't know. Red Dead Redemption is one that got a lot of hate for its stated being on rails, particularly in the way you tackle missions. But like, that story is so tightly woven that, like, I don't know. Maybe, sure, you could give the player the leeway to run around the other side of a battlefield, like, to flank them, sure, but then you're far enough away you won't hear critical dialogue and character development and all that stuff that's happening during the fights. You won't be able to hear a certain player, for example, going like showing low suspicion towards another player that like foreshadows certain betrayals. It's like, I don't know, like, I never thought at many points at all during the game, let's just abandon all the shooting, loop around and do etc. thing, or let's abandon all the shooting, go back to snipe and do it. Like, it was always like, this is where the shooting is. You're practically invincible in the game anyways, unless you suck, so just go in and shoot with them. I see people complain about being on rails, and I'm like, literally not once in my entire 100+ hour playthrough did I ever fail a mission for leaving an area, so I don't understand what people are complaining about.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Something that I was going to bring up, once again, going on different tangents with stuff, as far as, like, being able to sit down and play games and all that, something that I find interesting that, I mean, I know that you've experienced it as well, because you and I were the ones who experienced this together, which is, I still find it so much easier to play a game, or just watch a game, if you're doing it with a friend. Like, you and I played, what was it? Was it Diablo 3 or 4? I don't remember which numbers are which.
It would be 3.
3, okay. Is 4 even out yet?
I think it's in development. I'll fact check it. You go ahead and just continue talking.
Okay, but you came over to my house when you were going to UCI, and you would bring the PS4, and we would sit down and play Diablo 3 for like 10 hours straight. And that is not a game that I would play solo whatsoever, and it's not a game that you really played much of by yourself. I think it was something that your brother
never
even got so you guys could play together. Yeah, it's just, for me, the idea of couch co-op, or even couch just, like, I could totally imagine myself watching you play a Phoenix Wright game while sitting right next to you. I think I did somewhat while you were living at my house, and I know for sure I watched you play Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2.
Yeah, and you hated that.
I did hate some of it. Some of your things were atrocious in the fact that you were like, the game's too easy, so I refuse to use my 60 power points that I have to, go into upgrades. And it's just like, fuck you, man.
Like 200.
Dude, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and then at the end, like, I'm like, this game's kind of hard.
Yeah.
So then I actually spent them. But, like, yeah, that was an experience. But, I don't know, just the idea of, like, couch co-op, it's largely dead these days. Like, I guess earlier I mentioned The Binding of Isaac apparently has it, but, like, I don't know. Off the top of your head, a lot of people complain about couch co-op being dead, and now we have, like, very streamlined multiplayer games where you don't really form connections in many cases. So, like, is there a couch co-op experience that you can think of that you're just missing today that you would have liked to have, or even is it just backseat gaming that you're cool with and you just want someone to do that with?
I'm it's not necessarily that I need one or the other. Like, I'm fine with backseat gaming. I'm fine with the couch co-op experience. I just find it interesting that, like, I have a hard time forcing myself to play some games that I want to play, but I have an easy time forcing myself to play games that I don't give a shit about if I'm playing it with you or a different friend, especially in person. Like, I can play some of them online. I wasn't huge on League, but I played that for years just because friends did. And, I don't know. I find it interesting, and it also somewhat surprises me that there's not a huge community, at least not one that I know of, for stuff like that, because watching a Let's Play channel where it's just one person with huge reactions or someone who's, like, amazing at a shooting game or something, I can understand the appeal of that, but I remember when I was a First member. First is like the subscription service that you can do for Rooster Teeth. One of the like premium things that you got was there were these two guys, Miles, and I think the other guy's name was Kyle. I could have been wrong, but they essentially did just like couch co-op, where they'd play like the newest Resident Evil at the time. They would switch off controllers, or they would play what's that game that I think it was originally for PlayStation. There's a few in the series where there's like ghosts and you take picture of them and that's how you injure them or whatever. Fatal Frame. And they played Fatal Frame together, and there was just kind of like, once a week you'd get the new 2 or 3 hour video of them switching off things. Sometimes they'd switch it off through the episode. Sometimes it'd be just like, Miles is playing this episode, Kyle's playing this episode. But, you have the person free to talk to them and make commentary, and sometimes they're talking about that. Sometimes they're just talking about life or whatever. But, I don't know. It surprises me that, like, people don't enjoy that as much. That like more Twitch for where you have the community of other people to kind of talk to, even if the stream of comments is going too fast for you to talk to one person, or having this actual streamer who doesn't really pay attention to you, but they're playing with other big people, or maybe they're impressive, maybe they're funny. Like, I can understand how those are things, but to me the idea of just watching two dudes who really vibe with each other play a game, whether it's a super interesting one or not, to me that's just so much more appealing to watch and do in person.
Yeah, no, that's fair. If anything, I feel like maybe through YouTube videos, I replaced that experience in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, one of my favorite YouTube channels for a couple years was Outside Xbox, because it was just 3 friends playing games together, and you get to hear them banter, and there'd be callbacks to previous episodes, blah, blah, good interactions. It's like, this is a genuine interaction, or at least as genuine as it gets on camera.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just because of our game tastes and niches. I don't know, and I guess friends just not having time or moving or whatever, I don't have necessarily someone who would have a compatible enough taste to do that with. And I know you were mentioning like maybe you'd be willing to do things outside of your comfort zone just because it would be more of a social interaction there, but I am honestly not so far that way. I did that for a while, and I got very irritated. I'm like, wow, I can do better things with my time. So, I don't know. I feel like just with YouTubers, I kind of replaced it because I'm like, oh, this is the content I want to watch on demand.
Yeah, so, but, even I was curious because the Outside Xbox sounded like, oh, well, that's the content that I was talking about that I'm surprised there's not more of. And looking at Outside Xbox right now, it's like 7 suspiciously easy bosses fights. Who's the best ninja mutant, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle? Oh my god, I can't talk. But they're not even doing the stuff that they were before, where now it's like top 10 stuff and weird things. Who's the best at this? It's no longer just 3 people playing games and having these social interactions. And I'm just curious of like, is the market just that dead for it? Like, I personally would enjoy it, but clearly it wasn't popular enough that they stuck with it, or maybe it's just because they grew and they couldn't keep it with that. But I don't know. Yeah. Like, is it something that you just, with your personal opinion on it, do you think it's something that like is just dead or not a good enough community, or do you think that there's like some stuff out there that we don't even know of that are exactly that are like booming in popularity?
Well, what I could tell you about their situation in particular, just because I'm mildly knowledgeable about it because I watched them like every week for a while, even every day for a while. For them, they were doing their thing consistently. They would have their weekly, top 10 video and a weekly like recap video. Like, otherwise it was just the 3 friends playing. But when the pandemic hit, they did fully isolate for like God, like more than half a year, and it just became very difficult for them to do their same content with the same feeling, over online services. So they started reverting more to the top tens, and their channel just continued to function either the same or better. So in their case, it's just like, I don't know, this is easier to make, it brings in the views, and I don't know, I guess it's as fulfilling for them. So it really is as simple as that. But I feel like there has to absolutely be a market for, just group of people enjoying games. Like, there's obviously a market for single player, like single person doing that, like Jacksepticeye or Markiplier or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like especially because a lot of people enjoy nostalgia stuff, where, like, don't get me wrong, Mr. Beast has amazing videos that, like, never would have been possible, back in 2007 YouTube, and I'll enjoy those from time to time, but there's certain things that I just like old Smosh back from, 2008, 2009, and parody music videos, which were a huge thing, during, like, 2010, 11, and stuff like that I just kind of miss, and I wouldn't be surprised if other people do either, because, like, nostalgia hits hard. There's tons of things that people buy for that. I mean, I work at a storage facility that's all like media-based manga, anime, comic book shit like that, and you'll see tons of things where it's like, why is there so much shit just from the 80s and 90s that's not even relevant? And it's because nostalgia is a big thing. So I'm just curious of, like, when/if certain things, like the gaming thing, like, old Smosh kind of comedy channels, even if it's not as amazing as nowadays Mr. Beast-esque videos, Mark Rober-esque videos, there's got to be a decent community for those things. And I'm just surprised that I haven't seen it personally.
Yeah, unless something gets recommended to you, like, it's hard to just, I don't know, literally YouTube friends playing games. But actually, something you mentioned, just about, nostalgia being something that's very reliable, people enjoy going back to it, blah blah. Disregarding anything regarding success or money or anything, literally just your personal enjoyment. Earlier we were literally talking about feeling like we don't have enough time to fully engage in things. So, like, if something was like nostalgia based or whatever, for video games, for example, like, let's say I was talking about your favorite childhood video games, Power Rangers, Dino Thunder, yeah, there you go, Pokemon, God, what was it for you, Pokemon XD and whatever, right? And other games, like, would you actually sit down and, like, if there was, like, hour-long episodes, would you watch a couple, a week or every now and then, or would it be like, I have played those, I know what's there, I don't need to see anyone else's reaction to it, I don't need that social connection, parasocial relationship. I will simply stick to getting new experiences in and enjoying new things. Like, where would you fall on that?
I think it's kind of similar to a podcast in the way of it's less important about the content that they're doing, like which game it is or something like that, and more if it's just like these two dudes on a couch together are, having conversations that I'm interested in. They sound like nice and relatable people. I'd be into watching that, especially if it's like a once a week thing. If it's, an hour-long video every day, then that's too much for me to keep up with. But yeah, if they have, a 2-hour video or something that comes out once a week for, a section of a game, and then they have other things that they do that I don't really give a shit about, but they have that as, like, their quote-unquote podcast-esque thing. If I vibe with the people enough, then I'd probably be into that as, like, Saturday night I'm working on my Excel sheet or, just trying to kill some time or whatever. I could see myself doing that, but also I do get your point of, you're definitely right, between the fact that, since I have to walk to work 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back, I get an hour for lunch, so, like, throughout my day, 10 hours of my day is dedicated to work, whether it's going there, being there, or coming back, and then I have the time that's taken up just for eating, making food, taking care of the laundry and that stuff. I essentially end up having 4 or 5 hours of the day to myself, so to say, like, 2 hours of this day I'm just going to watch these guys do stuff, it is so much harder at this point in time, as opposed to, like, high school. Yeah, shit's annoying, but I also did no homework in high school, so I had more free time. It's like, once high school's over at 2:30 in the afternoon, I had the rest of the day, 8 more hours of the day to do whatever I want, which is essentially double the free time that I have now. So it definitely does make it hard with that stuff.
Do you know how much I miss that? But that'll be another episode.
Well, that's also coming from you who dropped out of high school.
Not dropped out, withdrew.
Yeah, whatever.
Legal distinction.
Okay.
But yeah, with that said, actually, I was thinking about the answer to my own question myself, and what I was thinking of was, I mentioned earlier that a necessity in gaming for me is having a large, expansive story, but that's for my modern gaming taste. The thing is, as you may remember, I'm like a very avid retro gamer, particularly for like the PlayStation 1 era, even though ironically I played far more PlayStation 2 games. But the thing is, I don't find myself ever looking up content for like PS1 games I'm passionate about. I don't watch retrospectives on them very often. Like I am subscribed to a few channels that every few months, like I'll binge watch a few videos, but like I'm talking about like 3 to 6 months. So like this is a very rare thing. It's just like not on my radar. It's not something that I actively seek out, even though it's a hobby I enjoy, presumably with a community I would enjoy. So it's just interesting, like where is that disconnect?
Yeah, but also, I mean, as far as recommendations go, I don't exactly look up, try everything from Taco Bell, but I get recommended that nonetheless. So, I mean, certain things I can understand why the stuff that we're talking about wouldn't come up in our recommendations as much, but it doesn't change the fact that if they did come up in the recommendations, I'd probably at least click, one every now and then, but I just never get any.
Fair. I want to go a little more on the subject though, because I actually kind of find it interesting.
Yeah.
For a little bit, I was considering like playing retro games and like uploading gameplays on YouTube, and there's still no harm in that. Like, I may very well end up doing that still. But I sat down and thought about the viability of like any sort of channel growth there, and like I'm just saying logistically speaking, like this kind of like a meta like interesting thing I thought of. Actual sustainable growth in that, or more particularly the explosive growth you need to actually do anything with it, kind of seems borderline impossible, because like how would your video ever get recommended? Like who is going to be looking up a 30-year-old video game? Like you'll get the occasional person, but you're not going to get no like 100,000 people being like, yo, you know what game was really awesome in 1997? Devil's Dice, which I'm guessing you've never even heard of.
I don't know, it sounds generic enough that it sounds familiar, but you're right, I probably have never heard of it.
Yeah, so it's just like, that I was just kind of thinking, like, the grind of retro YouTube gamers, and it's like, that actually must be a pretty awful, unbearable, insurmountable grind. Like, I'm sure you're just doing it for the fun of it and you're passionate about it, but, like, that is something I literally could not see the logistical growth for.
Yeah, well, like I said before, I feel like with that kind of stuff, it's less about the games that you're playing, and it is more about the personality who's doing it. Because for me, I give zero shits about Mr. Beast's personality, but if you're going to spend $10 million on making a Squid Game recreation, I'm going to watch that. Where if you're someone who's playing an old game for 2 hours, like, I'm going to care about your personality 100 times more.
That's the thing, but ironically, you're actually kind of playing into exactly what I said. It's about, like, the personality, not the, like, content as much. Like, at least the idea of it. Like, if it's an interesting enough title and someone you love, then yeah, you're going to click on it. But the thing is, like, in terms of that growth, like, who is going to be clicking on insert 30-year-old not popular video game? Like, how are they ever going to find out that they like you if they never find you?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's what
No, I understand it. It is hard, but I mean, it's the same way with, we're doing this podcast, and it has, from what I know, 0 viewers other than my mom, and, not to say that this will never grow, but it could potentially as well, and there's other people, like, on the podcast Reddit who end up like, oh, I have 1 million downloads now, and I'm just a random guy who talks to my friends about video games or whatever. Like, even though, yes, I understand that, it's harder to get a big audience with something like this, or something like that, than it is if you play the meta of YouTube or Twitch or whatever at the time. Like, clearly there are some people who are just like, yeah, I'll click on this random podcast of 2 assholes talking to each other.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, the meta analysis of it, because, like, at least podcasts are in right now. There's, like, let's see, there's 7 billion people on the planet. There's probably, like, 24 billion podcasts.
There probably is.
Yeah, all jokes aside, at least podcasts are in. Like, retro gaming, sure, it can be in, but you get what I mean. I think you generally get the idea. It's just an interesting, like, meta discussion.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It is interesting, and, I don't know, there was something that I was going to say on it. I don't know. Jonathan, fill the dead time as I'm thinking.
Well, I mean, I have a question I could ask.
Okay, ask a question. No, it's okay. Maybe I'll forget that I was even trying to remember something.
All right. Well, you mentioned that you bought the new game on Steam. Hold up. I don't remember the name of it, but I remember had a 2 in it. So that's what's important.
Yes, number 2. Bravely Default 2.
There you go. Bravely Default 2, which is, RPG and everything. But did you ever end up actually beating Chrono Trigger? Which is another RPG you bought not that long ago?
No, I didn't. Dude, I've told you, like, so many things. I'm just like, yeah, I bought Skyrim again because I haven't played that since 2012. I got, Persona 5. And there's just so many things that, like, I will start and be like, this is such a time dedication. Where even this game, like, for all I know, 2 weeks later, I'll be like, hey, did you ever beat that game? No, I played 10 hours, and then I just stopped it.
Oh man, so we're both falling for backlog fallacies, just in different ways.
Yeah, but I did remember what the thing that I was going to say was, which
You're
was,
welcome.
as far as like getting big on YouTube or anything like that, with the things that are harder to go with the trends and all that, is something that crossed my mind the other day is that the advice for early YouTubers versus like modern YouTubers must be so different, because now there's the whole of like there's X amount of people who are on the platform, and you got to make things that are better than someone else to make people want to watch your stuff, because they have so much other things. A million subscribers used to be a huge milestone, and it still is, but there's like 100,000 people with a million subscribers. Granted, half of them are Vivo, but who gives a shit? Where in early YouTube, if you wanted your stuff to be big, I mean, the advice is kind of the same, but in the opposite, where instead of it being hard, it was probably easy from the standpoint of you just have to make your content better than other people's, and since this is new and there's no meta or anything, your competition is so fucking low that, like, yeah, if you are just two dudes playing games on a couch and you're somewhat likable, it's probably 1,000 times easier to become big then than it is now of just two guys with a shitty camera playing games on a couch.
Well, yeah, it's just kind of interesting because so many of the rules, like you're saying, that worked then don't work now, and I don't know what the solution is. I think it kind of just comes down to luck and just have a good product. But like, I remember back on early YouTube, the idea was find a niche or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now I feel like it's swung the opposite way almost, where like it's like find a trend and follow it, and do you just got to post on TikTok, post on Instagram Shorts and YouTube Shorts or whatever, and like hope it blows up. You get your viral 1 minute of fame and ride on it. Like, it's just kind of interesting. Or like the whole idea of having a unique creative name. Now who gives a shit? Like, it's just so much has changed.
I think that actually perfectly compares to my thoughts on a lot of games nowadays, which is, since I told you about how JRPGs are very much just like, you get the combos down, you get the numbers down, you get the typings down, and basically the game plays itself at that point. And I specifically choose not to try to think of games that way, where when the Diamond and Pearl remakes came out, I told you, like, I know that I should be IV looking for this, EV training this, that these Pokemon are going to be at the top of the meta, but I specifically choose to ignore all of that because it makes it more enjoyable for me. And I think that's the same thing with, like, us on this podcast, or when I've tried YouTube before, of just, like, for my own mental stability, I'd rather go the way where it's less likely to blow up in popularity, but at least it doesn't feel like I'm just trying to min-max what everyone else says to do. It's like, goddamn, just let me play it the way that I want to. Let me just enjoy my own life and not feel like I'm not doing it properly because I don't know how to, like, dive into the code and manipulate the RNG.
Well, I mean, even in terms of like social media, I'll just say YouTube specifically, just because, I don't know, I like YouTube. It feels like the meta is a barrier to entry at this point. And by that I mean, like, you have to figure out how to, you got to spend thousands of dollars on good equipment if you want to really keep up with people, or at least $8,000, like if you're going on the more budget end, which sounds disgusting to say. You got to have every single social media, and then you have to be able to be active on all of them, clip all of them. I think the biggest barrier is, dude, you cannot have a full-time job and like any other extracurriculars. Like, you have to have a lot of free time. So if you're not young and going into it, I do not know how you break in. Yeah, no,
it really is hard. Like, I remember I watched Ludwig, and I watched Ludwig, but he made a video on one of his channels not too long ago, which probably was a year ago still, but of just like, oh, YouTube isn't all luck, which I acknowledge it's not all luck. I mean, luck is a portion of it, but he basically made a second YouTube account that was just like some informational YouTube account or whatever, and he was like, I hired a guy from Fiverr to read it so people wouldn't think that it was my voice, and I wrote the script, and then I went on Twitch and I donated $10 to this guy and told him that he was in this video so he should check it out, and then my thing blew up and I got 7,000 subscribers over the course of a week, which is a huge thing. And I'm just thinking, like, yes, that took skill, but also that took the money of having stuff for Fiverr to have all of this, to donate 10, 20, whatever it was to the one guy so he could check it out, which also was luck that he even bothered to check it out. But most importantly, like, that's if that's the kind of content that you want to make. Yes, you can have skill for making those kind of videos if those are what you want to make. But if you just want to make podcasts, for example, like this, and you post it on YouTube, like, there's a skill difference between people who like know how to edit things in the proper way and like maybe set up a podcast episode in a certain way. But generally speaking, podcasts are going to be so much harder to blow up than an informational video, because just the metas that you're playing towards and the interest that comes towards it, and whether you enjoy it personally or not. And that's the thing that I kind of hate, where it's just like, oh, you just got to do this if you want to get big on YouTube. It's like, being big on YouTube is, yes, a side goal, but I want to be big on YouTube doing the thing that I want to do, not just for the sake of being big on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying, and I'm not trying to be like Mr. Contrarian here, not to you, but like to Ludwig's experiment. There's kind of two fatal flaws in it as well, in my opinion. One is it's demonstrating that it doesn't take much to make a viral video, but that's not the issue. The issue for a lot of people is sustaining being viral, which is a completely different matter altogether. But even beyond that, even if it's him performing that experiment and it seems very obvious on face value, he's still a career entertainer who does this every single day and has a massive audience. Like, he's going to know how to make certain things work. Like, whether he's cognizant of it or not, he will know tricks of the trade that to other people just might not be as obvious.
Yeah, but I mean, that does play into the skill thing that he was saying of that, whether they're common skills or not. It was his skills that made a difference for some of it, but...
Yeah, it just takes someone who literally does this 24-hour streams, that level of skill.
Well, you say 24-hour streams. He did have the subathon, which was literally 1 month of him streaming, including while he was sleeping. So
yeah, and if that's what it takes to get big, oh my god, when is a normal person going to,
No, that's fair, but I will say he did, which, I mean, you said not having a job, and he did do this, but I remember that the way that he started out was, I think he had like $10,000 or $20,000 saved up, and he had gotten fired from a job, and he's like, I can live off of this for 6 months, and if I don't hit X amount of subs on Twitch by that point, then I'll just give up and do something else. But it does show the fact that, like, doing it as a part-time thing is fucking hard to become a professional YouTuber with much growth, or Twitch streamer or anything like that. You really do have to dedicate yourself fully to it, which basically means, like, either you're gonna blow up like him, or you're gonna be like, okay, $20,000 down the drain, I have 500 subscribers, and I'm making $0, boys.
Yeah, gonna be real with you, like, that is something that unless I'm already, like, on the cusp, that is not something I would be able to do. I would just be way too money conscious. Yeah,
something that I do want to bring up as, like, one last thing that at least comes to my mind before we bring this to an end, is with the whole whether it be streaming, YouTube, and games specifically that we were talking about, with how much time it takes to play those and how much how short we are on time. I remember that for a few months there, and especially during COVID and all that, I wasn't working, I wasn't really doing school stuff, but just playing games endlessly every day felt like, my god, I'm wasting my life, this feels fucking atrocious. So, in your opinion, assuming that you would probably feel similarly, how many hours a week would you, like, ideally work? Assuming that you're making the same money and everything, because I know that would be a big issue of working and all that stuff, but, like, in your opinion, could you just not work and still feel satisfied with your life, or would you be like, I think the 40 hours makes the gaming more rewarding when I do play it, because I put the work behind it? You think 20 hours, like, in your ideal situation, assuming that your money wouldn't change, like, how much would you actually have work time versus free time in a week?
That's actually something I've been evaluating my own life. Not so much, like, for the purpose of this discussion and gaming specifically, but just, like, the point of life. I'm going to get existential here on you.
Ooh.
But, like, there has to be a purpose in life beyond working and producing a product for others. But, like, so much, the vast majority of our life is going to be geared towards that, whether it's preparation for it, whether it's actually working, whether it's continuing education, or so on and so forth, right? Like, a large majority of our life is dedicated to it. And I think it's turned me into a bit of a workaholic in a sense, such that whenever I found myself not super overworked, I get genuinely anxious and I get kind of unhappy. Like, I can still find enjoyment in things, but like, it's such a diminished amount. I need something, and more than just like, I gotta have a clean house, so I'll do the dishes and like work out and whatnot. Like, that's not enough. I need like, not a 40-hour work week. That's kind of a lot, but like, I think I would certainly need to be working in some capacity, whether it's actually a job or whether it's, something more minor than that, for probably at least 20 hours. Like, 4 hours a day, that is not a lot. Like, that I would probably at least need, whether it's actually working or like, entertaining job or whatever. You get the idea.
Yeah. For me, honestly, I was thinking the exact same thing of like, I could see myself doing 25 hours a week, 20 hours a week, where, assuming you still get a lunch period and stuff like that, because that definitely helps break things up. But like, yeah, where you have 5 days a week that you're doing 4 hours a day or something like that. It definitely seems like it breaks up the monotony enough and makes it feel like you have some feeling to your life beyond just complete hedonism. That's the word.
Yeah, because like, otherwise it feels like an endless consumption of entertainment. And I mean, there's literally like dystopian level like entertainment pieces about that, art pieces, whatever, movies, TV shows, like, it is enjoyable, but it's diminished, and I don't want that to be diminished. I want to enjoy things to the fullest.
Yeah, but no, it is interesting with you talking about like the anxiety that comes if you just don't have work or stuff like that. It's just interesting how like growing up things change, becoming an adult, one, because of life situation, two, just because your brain chemistry changes and everything. But something that I've told you a bit about before, but now that I'm working again and I have money, it's popped into my mind again, and it feels so fucking just like stupid, where I can logically understand it's stupid, but my emotions don't understand that it's stupid, which is also annoying that you can have that disconnect. But that I make money, and I'm like, well, I gotta save money. Well, why do I want to save money? So I can do things that I want or buy things that I want. Okay, well, I just bought that manga, and before I was buying that manga, it's just like, I shouldn't buy this manga. Why? So I can save up money. Why? So I can buy things that I want. Well, what do you want? Manga. Okay, then buy the manga. But then I can't. Why? Because you don't have money. And it just like goes into this thing. It's just like, buy it or don't buy it. I feel bad either way. It's like, well, now I don't have things that I want, or I bought something that I want, but now I don't have the money for it. It's just like, it's just so fucking stupid.
No, I actually get exactly what you mean. I don't know if this is like a product of us just not having the highest paying jobs in the world.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I've always wanted to go on a trip, and that is doable, but I just don't, because I know that money can be spent better elsewhere. But I don't know. If you sit me down right now, like, we will sit down right now. We're already sitting. Great. We're halfway there. Just think, like, what are some things I want out of life? Like, I don't know, we could think of things, and it could cost money, and we'd still feel bad about the pursuit of it.
Yeah, exactly, because, I mean, I can understand that there's different levels of things where, yeah, it probably feels worse if you spend $3,000 on, like, ordering Pizza Hut all the time, even if that brings you joy. But I'm thinking of, like, if I go to Japan with you, a place that both of us would like to see, that both of us have never been to, and, between the plane ticket, between hotels, between doing stuff, let's say it costs $3,000 a person or something. If I had $10,000 saved up, and I spent those $3,000, I would probably enjoy it, but I also still probably feel terrible of like, well, no, I spent $3,000, so I have $3,000 less to do things that I want to do, even though going to Japan would be a huge thing that I want to do, but I would still feel bad about it in some way, and it's just like, why? The logical and emotional disconnect is so high, and it's annoying that I'm stupid or smart enough to realize that.
Yeah, no, and it feels almost pointless in a way, like, when is this feeling going to go away, right?
Yeah.
But like, if anything, it's kind of ironic, because this actually is going to be a logical fallacy, I'm sure, but it's actually encouraged me to spend more money in a way, because I've realized I'm going to feel shitty either way, so let's just get it on over with, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I bought the manga. I essentially came to the same conclusion of just like, yeah, I'm going to feel bad either way, but at least one way I feel bad with something that I have, and the other way I feel bad and still don't have anything. So it's like, I guess this way is a little bit, better. But it's still annoying that you feel bad either way.
Theoretically, like, Yeah, that's the point of working beyond many other things is to get money for leisure things. It's like if you're just not doing leisure things, then why are you working so hard?
Yeah, beyond, rent and that stuff.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, like, funding your hobbies and interests.
Yeah, I don't know. It is interesting, but life's a bitch, so we'll see how it goes. But unless you got anything else that fits in naturally, I think this is a pretty good stopping point.
Well, no, that was just the first half. No, just kidding.
Oh, God. I mean, we have had 4-hour phone calls before, so we can have our 4-hour podcast episode.
I would love to see the retention rate on that video.
0. Even my mom can't get through it all.
Oh, man. Well, no, I'm okay with stopping it here. And, I'm sure that next week we'll have plenty more things to discuss. Maybe continuing it, maybe not. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I think this was our first true, totally tangential conversation where it kind of went off the rails a little bit, but, not bad.
True. Well, till next time then. Ta-ta for now.
Toot toot for Newt.
Ooh.